Welcome to the tutorial for generating a remote service with gRPC using ECF Remote Services. To get started, I'm going to launch a new workspace in Eclipse. And we will go into the workbench. Now, this Eclipse has already had Bndtools already installed. And so if you need to install Bndtools, then please go to bndtools.org to install it. First, we're going to create a Bndtools workspace, but we're going to do so using a Bndtools workspace template exposed by ECF Remote Services. So to set that up, we go to Window, Preferences, Bndtools, Workspace Template, and we add a new repository, which is ECF/bndtools.workspace. And we choose Validate and Save. And now the ECF Bndtools workspace appears here. Here's one of the templates that's going to be used to creating a new Bndtools workspace. Choose Apply and Close. And now when we go to New, Other, Bndtools, OSGi Workspace, it's going to by default create it in the current Eclipse workspace, which is what we want. And now we see under the Select Template, the ECF Bndtools Workspace template. So we select that, choose Next. It's downloading the content of the ECF Remote Services Workspace template. And once that's completed, we choose Finish. And we switch to the Bndtools perspective. Notice that there are a number of ECF repositories with a number of ECF bundles present in those repositories that are available within this new workspace. Okay, now we have our Bndtools workspace, and we are going to create a new BND OSGi project. And in the ECF Remote Services workspace template are a number of project templates that provide examples of different kinds of remote services projects. And one of those examples is a gRPC, Proto-C generated health check API project. And so we're going to select that one because the first thing about our service that we want to define is the service API. So we're going to create a new project in this workspace from this project template. We'll give it the name healthcheck.api, project name. And there it is. Now, if we go to the HealthCheck API project, we'll see that one of the files that was provided to us in the template was this health.proto file. And we're going to open this file with a text editor and take a look at it. The health.proto file contains a Google RPC example of a service declared in the protocol buffers format. As you can see at the bottom of this file, there's a service named HealthCheck declared with 4 different RPC methods listed here. Normally with a proto file, what one would do would be to run a command line program called Proto-C to generate source code from this protocol buffers definition. But with Bndtools and Eclipse, Proto-C is run automatically and source code has already been generated for this health check service. For example, here's the health check service interface generated from the proto file automatically by Bndtools and Eclipse. Notice that it has the same 4 methods that we saw in our proto file. We can also edit this proto file, and Bndtools will automatically regenerate all of the source code for this API. So for example, let's delete this method, save the file, and when we go back to health check service interface, this generated code has changed to reflect the deletion of one of the 4 methods from the proto file. We can also go back to the health.proto file, simply undo our removal of the method, save the file, and then when we go back to our health check service, you can see the method has been regenerated. Actually, the entire interface and all of these classes have been regenerated by Proto-C compiler. For fun, let's add a new method. So going back to our proto file, add a line and put RPC. Check 1. Check request. Returns. Health check response. And we save it. And once again, when we go to our generated code, there's our new method, all generated and ready to use. To show how easily this service API can be turned into an OSGi remote service with ECF Remote Services, I'm going to create an implementation project from the health check impl project template. First, it's going to ask us for a new name, and we'll call it healthcheck.impl. And it is asking for the API package that this implementation is going to refer to. And our API package is named healthcheck.api that we created earlier. And inside this new project is a class called Health Service Impl, which if we look at it, it implements our health check service from our API. It also extends a class that is also defined in our API. And it implements the single check method. And this method will be called when a remote call is made on this service by a consumer of this remote service. Notice that this is defined as a service component and that it has properties which are the OSGi remote service properties that allow it to be automatically exported as a remote service when Declarative Services creates an instance of this service. We can now actually start this remote service implementation by opening this BND run file, which defines which bundles are to be included in running an application. And we'll resolve and choose update. And once this is done, well, before we do this, let's go back to the health check service impl. Put a breakpoint right in our method so that we can tell in the debugger when it's going to be executed. But we can now go back to our BND run file and choose debug OSGi, and this will start our remote service. And we can see from the console output that it also produced an export registration, which is the information that is exposed about a remote service when that remote service is exported. So to summarize, we now have an instance of this remote service running on localhost, waiting for connections from consumers of this remote service. So let's create a new project that will be a consumer of this remote service. And we go back to our project creation template and choose the Health Check Consumer project template. And we'll give this one the name healthcheck.consumer. And it will also refer to the Check API. And let's take a look at the Health Check Consumer that was just created. There's a single class called the Health Service Consumer. And you can see that it is also a service component, but it has a reference to the health check service, which means that when the health check service is discovered by the remote services admin implementation from ECF, that instance will be injected into this object, and then it will be activated, and this method will be called. And in this activate method, it turns around and uses the health check service. That is, it calls the check method on the health check service. Let's put a breakpoint here. And now we can go about testing our new remote service end to end by running the consumer. So we'll bring up the BND run file for the consumer. Click resolve. And update. And now we can run it in the debug OSGi. So now what will happen here is that after a few seconds, the health check remote service will be discovered via LAN-based multicast discovery protocol called ZeroConf. And it imports, the consumer imports the remote service and then calls the activate method on the health service consumer. So we're just before running this remote service call. So let's go ahead and let it continue. And now we're in the service implementation class on the other process, the implementation process. And we're stopped in this at the line that's system out.println, and we'll let it continue. And now we're back into our activate call. We'll just step over this, and you can see the output from the print line statement got health check response status serving. We'll let the consumer finish. And you can see that on the consumer side, it also reports the import registration that was created when the remote service was imported. And we can go back and see that in the impl that there was a request that came in. And this is the system out print line from the health service impl class right here. The output from that, from each call. To summarize, let's go back to our projects. Using a single protocol buffers file, this health proto file, Bndtools and Eclipse automatically generated the remote service API classes for this, this service. And thanks to the ECF Remote Services project templates, we were able to get a implementation project and a consumer project up and running, and able to run and test this remote service very, very quickly. Thank you for watching.